I rise this evening to bring to closure this first of two major segments of this Honorable House's consideration of Budget 2022. The first segment, of course, being the policy debate, and the second, which will commence next week, being consideration of the national estimates. Let me, at the very onset, express my deep gratitude to all of my colleagues on this side of the House, not least, of course, and perhaps foremost amongst whom, the Honorable Prime Minister, who spoke immediately before me, for the time they took to elaborate our government's program for advancing economic and social development in our country in this new and incredibly exciting era in Guyana's history. Let me also thank all those who spoke from the opposite side of the House for their contributions to this debate, which almost invariably served the important purpose of reminding the Guyanese people of the appropriateness of the judgment they exercised on the 2nd of March 2020. I wish, sir, in particular, to acknowledge the speech and contribution made by the Honorable former Leader of the Opposition, and I wish, sir, to join Prime Minister in acknowledging and thanking the former Leader of the Opposition for his service in this capacity. His hour-long presentation, sir, would have reminded us in this House and the world at large why, sir, his own members of Parliament brought to a premature end his service in government on the 21st of December 2018. It would be recalled, sir, that it was the government in which he played such an instrumental role, and I will come back to that role, that merely 3.5 years into their term of office, their own core of members of Parliament exercised the deliberate judgment that they should no longer be there. But if that premature termination of his tenure in government were not enough, on the 2nd of March 2020, and I will not speak of the two local government elections that took place in the intervening period, 16 and 18. On the 2nd of March 2020, the people of Guyana spoke clearly and resoundingly to Mr. Harman, the honorable member Mr. Harman, and his government. Sir, if that were not enough, on the 18th of December 2021, the membership of his own party rejected him from the leadership of the party. And so small wonder, sir, that Mr. Harman chose today to deliver his swan song from the confines of some hidden room so that he could not face the indignity of the empty opposition benches, which would have demonstrated that his own members of parliament could not be bothered to be present when he was speaking.
Wow. No, that hurts. Please report that. That hurts.
Mr. Speaker, what a striking image it was. This lone figure standing all alone in a room by himself. Standing all alone in a room by himself.
God is even with you.
A man who once bestrode Guyana like the de facto emperor.
You need God more than a lot of people.
A man who once bestrode the length and breadth of Guyana as the emperor at large and the self-appointed emperor for life. And lest there be any mistake, sir, the person who was supposed to have been his boss had already assumed almost divine proportions.
Yep.
So one of the most striking images of the 2015 to 2020 period, one of the images that will forever be etched in the memories of the Guyanese people and in the annals of political history of this country, is the image of a cardboard cutout positioned in the middle of the National Stadium because the great and divine leader was too good to be amongst his supplicants. So if you wanted to pose with the president, you had to come and line up to stand up near the cardboard man. So, and that image will live forever. And you wonder, sir, why the people of Guyana rejected you? You wonder why the people of Guyana rejected you? Sir, this great and divine leader to whom the emperor at large reported for 5 years, only condescended to speak. They speak about democracy, openness, and transparency. Today, Mr. Harman spoke disparagingly about the vice president giving a press conference. Sir, the vice president and His Excellency the President, the Prime Minister, and all the ministers of this government, all the ministers of this government speak almost every week to the media. But the cardboard man, sir, only condescended on 3 occasions in 5 years. The cardboard man only condescended to speak to the media on 3 occasions in 5 years. And you dare to come to speak about the People's Progressive Party and our commitment to openness and transparency and good governance. You have the audacity, you and your cardboard leader, have the audacity. You have the audacity to speak about openness and transparency and good governance. a cardboard leader that refused to answer questions from the media that were not scripted. The media used to be told, y'all jumping, you like to talk about Jagdev and Ali, but you don't want to hear about Granger, the cardboard man. You don't want to hear about Granger, the cardboard cutout. You don't want to hear about the cardboard cutout. You like jump up and talk about Granger and Ali. Listen and hear about the cardboard cutout. Cardboard cutout president. Cardboard man.
But Honorable Minister, His Excellency is not here to defend himself.
My apologies, sir. I was referring to a cardboard cutout. Sir, the people of Guyana, let me say this, sir. This is not 1972. It's not 1982. It's 2022. And the people of Guyana are watching and listening. And they are far more informed than the APNU, AFC members of parliament would like to give them credit for. Far better informed. You want to talk about dictatorship, sir? My apologies, sir. My colleagues on that side of the house, simple things say a lot. Simple things. Whole week we heard about the 3 B's. Oh, it's 5, no? Books, book bag, something about book bag and boots. Book bag and boots and boat and bus. Sir.
And Brian Tiwari.
Sir, let me just give a simple example. You know the buses that they're boasting of. Were all painted green and yellow, and they had emblazoned on them, even the boats. So the boats were all called the David G. And the buses were all called the David G buses.
Yeah, the G stand for God.
Cardboard man that you all reject. Y'all didn't even nominate the man to be a member of the executive council of the party and were jumping up for distinguished. He wasn't distinguished enough to be a member of the executive of the party. You're jumping now over distinguished. His own party rejected him.
Amen.
You're jumping now. His own party didn't consider him worthy of a nomination to any office in the executive. And jumping now but distinguished. Sir, these buses and boats were painted David G. David G. Mr. Speaker, I just have to give a simple example. Can you imagine what their response would be if we started launching buses and boats called the Irfane? Can you imagine if we started launching buses and boats called the Irfane or the Baraje? Can you imagine? But the hypocrisy and double standards right there in that issue captures the essence of what the APNU AFC is all about. Right there. It's fine for these buses to be emblazoned green and yellow and for them to be called David J, David G. They might as well paint them, should I call them cardboard M. It's fine for them to be called David G. But you imagine the calumny that would be visited upon a bus or a boat called the Irfan A or the Bara J. You imagine, just imagine. And they see nothing wrong with that, sir. That for them is good governance. And they believe that the Guyanese people are not watching and are not listening. But this is not 1972 or 1982. I ain't start talking about the exercise book with the picture. I ain't start talking about Melanie Damishana or Roxanne Burnham Gardens or Linden. You imagine if we found Silicon. Mind you, His Excellency, I'm not sure if he was Prime Minister or President at the time, but Mr. Burnham, whether he was President or Prime Minister at the time, was still incumbent when Linden was called Linden. You imagine if we found Silica City and call it Irfanville? It's the direct parallel. Mr. Burnham was the sitting Prime Minister or President, I suspect Prime Minister. When Mackenzie and Wisma were linked, and a new town was founded, I believe he would have been Prime Minister. This was prior to his assumption of the executive presidency. Sir, he was sitting Prime Minister, and a new town was formed. And the new town was called Linden. It's like if we go and call Silica City, Mark Phillipsville, or Jackdaleville. Oh. Sir, that is the nature. That is the nature. That's the nature of the PNC. That's the nature of the PNC, sir. And they see nothing wrong. They see nothing wrong with that. And they have the audacity, sir. They have the audacity to come here and watch the Guyanese people in their eyes and in their faces and pontificate about good governance and about democracy and about constitutional rule. But this, sir, is not 1972 or 82. It's 2022. And on that note, I want to say the following. The honorable member, Mr. Harman's performance today was not an outlier. It wasn't an isolated exception or an anomaly relative to the performance of those on the other side. In fact, it was very characteristic. It was very characteristic of the presentations we received from all of our colleagues on that side of the House. And of course, this should not come as a surprise, because the PNC has never really changed its intrinsic and fundamental nature. Whether, on a previous occasion I had spoken about their successive name changes, which do not disguise the fundamental consistency of their nature. With this, for example, all of this jumping up about appointment of commission that Mr. Harman went off on, Mr. Speaker, one of the most important constitutional offices in this country is the office of Leader of the Opposition. On Monday, sir, we heard that the Leader of the Opposition, on Monday that we heard that the Leader of the Opposition had resigned. On Monday, sir, in fact, it was budget day. It was January 26th, budget day, that we heard that the Leader of the Opposition had resigned. Clear and definitive, whether resigned, forced to resign, whatever it was. We heard that the Leader of the Opposition had resigned. A day or two ago, we heard that Ms. Nicolette Henry had resigned. Whether she has or has not is apparently still a mystery. But, sir, there's been no move to fill the position of Leader of the Opposition. A critical, instead we had a lame duck, has been former Leader of the Opposition coming to pontificate today. From a hidden room. Unsupported by his own MPs, rejected by his own MPs. Sir, rumor has it, and I don't wish to be a rumor monger, but given the gravity of the matter, rumor has it that the cardboard man is planning a commission of inquiry. You know, he liked commissions of inquiry. That is why he spent 5 years doing commission of inquiry. The cardboard man apparently is causing a commission of inquiry into whether Mr. Norton is fit and proper. You remember that phrase? Fit and proper? Apparently, a commission of inquiry is planned on whether Mr. Norton is fit and proper to be leader of the opposition. They're going to do a position paper before they get to the white paper and then the green paper. Sir, and this is perhaps understandable, because one of the apparent lead contenders for the position, or lead aspirants for the position of leader of the opposition, is on public record as describing Mr. Norton as racist. And sir, I'm going to go one step further, Honorable Prime Minister, with your permission, sir. I'm going to go further. The Honorable Prime Minister didn't name the members involved, but I'm reading here an article that says Roysdale Ford supports Harman for PNCR leadership. And the article says that prominent attorney at law, Roysdale Ford, I should have inserted the appropriate correct qualifier. I am quoting from the article. Attorney at law described in this article as prominent. Thursday night came out with a ringing endorsement of Mr. Harman for the leadership of their People's National Congress reform. And this is the very democracy. Don't let me tell you what Carl Greenwich said about your internal party democracy. Carl's still vexed. He said on public record that the party Rabi, that is on public record, don't have a party democracy. You want me quote Carl Greenwich? You want me quote Carl Greenwich? Sir, Mr. Ford, the honorable member, is quoted as saying here, there was no place for a tribal or divisive leader.
What?
And there was no doubt about who he was referring to, because promptly the next day, none other than Mr. Aubrey Norton himself pens a letter, a public letter. And hear what he says. His words, sir, Mr. Norton's words, not mine. I find it laughable but mischievous that Mr. Roysdale Ford insinuated that the PNCR under my leadership will turn the party into a black party. Mr. Ford is too new to the PNC to know. In other words, he's a Johnny come lately. I believe he probably does say that. Sir, these are not my words. These are not my words, sir. They are the words of Mr. Ford himself, who came today and with a lot of drama, hysterics, and empty theatrics, and histrionics even, appeared to be submitting an application for the job. So, I don't know, Mr. Norton, if you'll have to wait for 5 months, like how Mr. Irfan Ali had to wait for 5 months. But brace yourself. Brace yourself. Because the country had to wait from December 2018 to March 2020.
Yes.
And the country then had to wait from March 2020 to August 2020. So, Aubrey, brace yourself, my brother. Brace yourself. You're in for the long haul.
yourself, Aubrey.
I can't wait till you come in. Because when you come in, it's gonna be licked like
Up your time.
turkey feather.
Brace yourself.
It's gonna be licked like peas. Tell him.
So, sir,
Cameron, brace yourself.
when our colleagues on that side of the house come with their contributions, and I'm looking here, sir, when they come to this budget debate with their contributions, and they use, and I see the Honorable Chief Whip on the other side is here, he used the word, I believe that we said the budget is disrespectful. That's his word. Sir, contribution after contribution, the APNU AFC sought to insult the intelligence of the Guyanese people, disrespecting them. The real disrespect came from the APNU AFC. Looking at a budget that includes a lengthy number of interventions that will dramatically transform Guyana, that will materially and directly improve people's lives, and they still stand up and believe that the people of Guyana are incapable of interpreting and processing things for themselves. And barefacedly sought to insinuate otherwise to the people of Guyana. I want to say this, sir. In 2022, in the information age, or even the post-information age, in an age where people have access to the vastness of the World Wide Web, there is immediacy of communication. There is ability to process like never before. The people of Guyana are capable of judging for themselves. And you know, our country is maturing. It's maturing. We are maturing as a country. For 28 years, we were in a dictatorship from 1964 to 1992. In 1992, we were finally able to break out of the stranglehold of this oppressive dictatorship with the restoration of democracy. The People's Progressive Party was in government for 23 years to 2015. And perhaps understandably, some people started to have faded memories of what it was like to live under the PNC. Some started, their memories started to fade, as memories will do over time. This will happen to all of us. This will happen to all of us. Some people's memories started to fade. A whole new generation of young voters were born and grew up and came of age. Didn't know the pre-1992 period. Didn't understand when you speak about rigging of election, when you speak of destruction of the economy, when you speak of dictatorship, when you speak of economic collapse, when you speak of banning of basic food items. This was not relatable to them, because all they knew was the freedoms that they enjoyed in the post-1992 era. And so perhaps understandably in 2015, there were a number of people who figured perhaps it's time, maybe it's time we give these other guys a chance. Mind you, there are some who, in fact, will dispute on very credible grounds the basis on which they claimed victory. But put that aside for the moment. Put that aside for the moment. They assumed office in 2015. Sir, it only took them 3 years, and indeed less. It only took them 3 years for the people of Guyana to say, you know what? I know what it is like to live in a PPP, or in an environment where in a Guyana where there's a PPP government. I know what it is like to live in a Guyana where there is a PNC government. And it took the Guyanese people only 3 years of tasting the bitter medicine of the APNU, AFC in government for them to say, out you go, out you go. Give me back the PPP. They may not be perfect, but they're far better than y'all. Bring back the PPP. It only took the people of Guyana 3 years or less to figure that out. Sir, over the last week, and I want to say, sir, at this point in Guyana's history, and in this modern, as I was saying a few minutes ago, in this modern age of information, in this era when Guyana is going through such a rapid and dramatic transformation, sir, what we need more than ever before is serious, credible, capable, and competent government. And no amount of gymnastics and theatrics from the other side will change that fact. And the fact of the matter is that what we were treated to, presentation after presentation, was a succession. And there is that point too, which Minister Manik-Chan has made. People coming, reading. I don't know if somebody else was writing these speeches for them to read. Reading their prepared scripts, sometimes stumbling over the words, sometimes struggling a little bit with the pronunciation, but we wouldn't hold that against them. Sir, presentation after presentation, we were reminded, presentation after presentation, the people of Guyana were reminded of why their judgment in 2020 was as appropriate as it was. To begin with, the APNU-AFC has a serious problem, sir, with credibility. With credibility. Sir, you cannot come, and we salute you, Honorable Member Ferguson, for writing your own speeches. That's pretty clear, actually. We were under no illusion about, thank heavens you are writing your own speeches. May I ask you never to stop writing your own speeches? May I ask you never to stop? The Parliament will never be the same were you to devolve that responsibility to somebody else.
You are the only person we want to keep inside the Parliament.
Sir, the APNU-AFC manifesto, you know, the Prime Minister held up a manifesto. I didn't want to interrupt him, sir, but he held up a manifesto. Those who remember 2015 well enough, and I'm sure PM remembers this, will remember that there wasn't only one manifesto for the APNU-AFC, there were two. As a matter of fact, they didn't want to issue a manifesto to begin with. You remember that story? They didn't want to issue a manifesto. I have the other one. Yes, you got one, I got the other one. Look. They didn't want to issue a manifesto to begin with. And when they were cornered by the people of Guyana who said, tell us what you're promising to deliver, give us a manifesto, they rapidly outsourced it, sir. They probably commissioned 2 white papers or green papers or position papers or whatever kind of paper. Sir, they produced not one. I think they released this one first, and then they released this one. Confusing the people of Gapo, confusing my fellow citizens. Sir, I don't know if they held a COI as to the case of the duplicated manifesto. But Mr. Speaker, let us take the second version. Usually version 2 is the new and upgraded version relative to version 1. So let's work with version 2 and see what version 2 promised the people of Guyana, so that we can understand why the APNUAFC is devoid of credibility. Sir, listen to what they promised the people of Guyana. Listen, sir. Listen, sir, and try to contain your laughter so as not to impugn the dignity of your high office. Sir, they promised significant salary increases for government workers, including nurses, teachers, security personnel, and civil servants. So 5 years later, they left office, and 5 years later, they left office. They forgot about this commitment for 5 years. They never delivered on it. Well, now that they're back in opposition again, they have suddenly picked up and are championing the cause. So for 5 years, they impoverished public servants. They impoverished public servants, and I want to speak about how they did that. Sir, don't worry about that magician's trick. That cheap magician's trick that they used, that 3-card trick about giving some public servants a salary increase slightly above 5%. They used a tiered level of salary increase so that some public servants in some years were only getting 1%, some were only getting 3%. So there were levels, sliding scale. You remember the sliding scale? So some public servants who now suddenly they are championing their cause were only getting 3%. In fact, sir, the managerial grades of the public service were being penalized with salary increases that for almost every year out of those 5 years, managerial, middle, supervisory, and managerial civil servants did not get more than 3%. But they didn't only do that, sir. They forced thousands of public servants to move from the contract gratuity system to the pensionable establishment, including all of our professional doctors. Sir, I will tell you this. It might not be obvious to people what the consequence of that was. It might not be obvious what the consequence of that was. That resulted in a 22.5% cut in the pay of those public servants. Because these public servants were getting a gratuity of 22.5%. They took that away. Sir, I know public servants. I once had the privilege, sir, of being a public servant myself. And I know public servants in my own ministry who look forward to their gratuity. Sir, you know every 6 months you're going to get your gratuity and you're already planning. You know what, I'm going to set aside that gratuity. I'm going to make a little down payment on my mortgage to write down the principal. or I'm going to go to a hire purchase place and buy a significant piece of furniture or a significant appliance that I've always wanted for my home. They used to say, you know what, I'm getting gratuity in December. That's what I'm going to do in December. People used to promise their children, don't worry, in December I'm going to look after this thing. People used to promise their spouses and their partners, don't worry, in December we're going to fix up the fence. Or we're going to paint over the house. Or we're going to buy the new stove. Or we're going to buy the new fridge. Ordinary public servants, sir. Sir, these public servants were told, we will take away your gratuity. You don't think they're watching? You don't think they know? You think they're living in another planet? There are thousands of public servants who've been watching you and who know that you took away their gratuity and you're coming here and crying crocodile tears?
Crocodile tears.
Crocodile tears?
Crocodile tears. Ollie, crocodile tears. Watch you.
Sir, there were many public servants who worked beyond the call of duty. As you know, many of our ministries, some of them are understaffed. I can say that for public servants in my ministry, they work far beyond the call of duty. Some of them, you can't send them on leave. Some of them voluntarily say, you know what, I know that is a little pressure time, I ain't gonna bother to take this leave. My family putting me under a little pressure to take this leave, but I'm gonna hold on, I know they're under a little pressure. Public servants have said that to me, sir, over all of my years in government. You know what the APNU AFC said? Take your leave. You know what I said? Take it. What I said? Use it or lose it. Use it or lose it. Sir, public servants who are already overstretched and hard working, they're working hard. They're working hard. They're working beyond the call of duty. They're working beyond the call of duty. They're willing to forego their leave to get the work of the people done. And the APNU AFC government said to them, we are not going to pay you salary in lieu of leave. Use it or lose it. But guess what, sir? What the public servants at large don't know is that there were a tiny privileged few. There were a tiny privileged few who used to get a little letter saying approval is granted.
No, this can't be true.
Sir, and they come now. You know how many public servants out there knew that the ministry can't afford to send them on leave? Forwent, if that's the correct past tense for forego. Gave up their leave. Gave up their leave. Stayed on the job. And at the end of the year discovered that their leave had been forfeited. And they couldn't get paid for it. They couldn't get paid for it, sir. And you come here and cry crocodile tears?
Crocodile tears, crocodile tears.
You come here now, you don't think those people are watching you? You come here and you jump up about disciplined services. You come here and you jump up about disciplined services. Sir, take away the people 1-1 bonus for reasons that are still not clear.
God will make Mark come over to us.
For reasons that are still not clear, sir. Apparently, sir, there's a rumor, sir, that if you were a serving member of the discipline services, you were not good enough. You had to be a retired member and over 70 before you could be in their good grace.
Oh, wow.
And let me hasten to add, sir, that I have the greatest of respect for the septuagenarians in our society. Let me hasten to add that I have the highest of respect for the septuagenarians and octogenarians in our society. They deserve our highest respect. But not only people over 70 are supposed to get work. And sir, it was a joke. People used to laugh on the street. You have to be a farmer soldier and you're over 70. Sir, I know people connected with the PNC. I know people. It's not a secret that I have a lot of friends in the PNC. That's not a secret. I know people I have a particular example in mind, a gentleman who is in his advanced 60s. And I used to jokingly say to him, I said, I won't call his name, but everybody in this house knows him. I used to jokingly say, I said, what happened, man? They forget you? The man used to laugh and said to me, nah, man, I too young. I used to ask the man, I said, what happened, man? You buys them the government, they forget you? The man said, nah, man, I too young. In about 5 years' time, they might call. And the man was 69 at the time. The man was 69, he just celebrated his 70th birthday. I want you to start guessing his who.
Government is geriatric.
At 69, the man was too young to get a job with that. But they come here, sir. They come here, sir, and they cry crocodile tears. Sir, they promised, hear what they promised. Hear what they promised. A new AFC program for the first 100 days. Yes, first 100 days. That's the page I'm reading. Sir, they promised immediately implement a phased reduction of VAT and the removal of VAT. Hear the words, you know, not my words, not my words, the words of the cardboard giant and his cardboard team. Implement immediately a phased reduction of VAT and the removal of VAT from food and other essential items. Sir, the removal of VAT. The removal of VAT. Sir, let the people of Guyana judge for themselves, as indeed they have already done. Sir, they promised, sir, they promised, sir, that they will immediately, they said they will immediately double old age pensions and they will immediately double public assistance. Sir, 5 years later, they give a measly $7,000, and guess what? We deliver $7,000 in 18 months, and they're jumping up. And they're jumping up. Sir, and they believe that the people of Guyana are not watching them. Just like how they watch the people of Guyana. And they tell them 33 is not bigger than 32. They believe that you can tell the people of Guyana all of this nonsense, and the people are not watching them and judging them. So they said they will establish a national cane workers and cane farmers conference, and that they will establish a national rice farmers and rice millers conference. Sir, this is what they promised when they wanted people in the rice producing and sugar producing. When Mr. Ramjatan and Mr. Nagamutu in particular wanted people in the rice and sugar producing community to vote for them, they promised them that they will establish, here would they establish, a national, well, mind you, it's not nothing big, it's a committee. I guess the committee would have then work on a position paper. And the position paper would have then result in a green paper.
White paper.
And it would have then result in a national strategy. Sir, but let me just say for argument's sake, they promised the people a committee. Mr. Ramjatan, this committee was established. Here, National Cane, you went, sir. You went and promised the people in writing, your picture there in this thing, you buy rubber stamp. Look, you buy rubber stamp grinning. Look, the senior rubber stamp. Look, the senior rubber stamp grinning. Look at him grinning. The senior rubber stamp grinning here. The senior rubber stamp grinning here and promising the people. The senior rubber stamp grinning. You want to see the senior rubber stamp again? Watch. The Prime Minister without portfolio. The Prime Minister without portfolio. Look, the senior rubber stamp. The senior rubber stamp grinning and promising the people in the rice producing and sugar producing areas. Here we promise them, we will establish a national cane workers and cane farmers conference. Sir, it is well known, sir, that none of this.
How much the committee would have cost it?
We don't, it costs nothing because it's never established.
I'm hoping that, let's not go to the $9,000 party. Let me check the committee. I will take the committee and all. Even the committee and all I will take. You promised me the committee. You remember the then opposition leader, now vice president, said any initiative in their own manifesto that will benefit the people of Guyana, we will support.
Yes, we said that.
Any initiative. I rather suspect that even this committee we will support. Sir, even the committee they didn't deliver. Even the committee they didn't deliver. Sir, they promised that they will liberalize the telecommunications and ICT sector.
In 100 days, got you.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Sir, man, look, it continues. Sir, they said they will establish a hinterland and depressed areas fund. Where the fund there?
How much would it cost?
One.
We would have donated.
They will establish a hinterland and depressed areas fund.
No, I think this deal was.
They will develop a hinterland policy. They will facilitate access to affordable credit. Here is one. Minister Mustafa, you will like this one, sir. They said we will place, here the language. They're very good with language. They will place the hinterland cattle rearing industry on a scientific footing. Not ordinary footing.
Romantic language.
On a scientific footing.
Romantic language.
Here to do what? To take advantage of the international demand for organic beef.
Organic.
You know they got to say, where is the beef? You know they got to say, where is the beef? Sir, where is the organic beef 5 years later? Forget about scientific footing. We gonna take any footing. Where is the organic beef? Where is the organic beef? Sir, forget the organic. Where the cow there? Organic beef. Sir, they said that they will create a strategic development plan for Region 10. Sir,
Big word.
Minister Todd listed a number of times he has visited Linden, more than the cumulative APNU AFC in 5 years. And he's not the only cabinet member who's been there. We have all been there. Where the development plan there, and what are the results of implementation of this plan? But you know, maybe the development plan was closure of the call center. We left a functioning call center there. So when I returned to government a few months after President Ali assumed office, and I visited the location of that call center, it was a tragedy what I saw. It was a tragedy. The last time I had been into this building, it was a functioning call center. 125 young Lindeners were busy working at their computers, interacting with persons at the other side of the world, smiling cheerfully, knowing that they were collecting an income at the end of the month and able to support their families. Sir, when I went back there in 2020, I was almost moved to tears to see what was there.
Sad. Painful.
Not only was the call center closed, but the building was a dump, completely destroyed. Sir, I want to go further. A young member of my staff at the Ministry of Finance is a Lindoner. I have many Lindoners, but I'm speaking, there are many Lindoners working in the Ministry of Finance, but I am speaking of one in particular. A young lady whose name I will not call out of obvious respect for her privacy. A young woman working at the Ministry of Finance from Linden. I was in a conversation with her shortly after I returned, and I was finding out about her family. And she said to me, sir, that she had and has a sister who lives in Linden. She's a Lindoner. The family still lives in Linden. She had come to town to go to UG and now works at the ministry. She has a sister who graduated a few years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, and is at home living with her mother. So I said to her, what is your sister doing? She said, well, she's graduated, but she's unable to get a job. This was late 2020, early 2021. Shortly after that call center was opened, as a result of the effort made by this People's Progressive Party civic government, that very same young lady came to me and she said to me, Minister, my sister applied and is now a team leader at the call center.
That is what you destroyed. That is what you destroyed. You have to rebuild. And then you come in here with crocodiles.
And sir, guess what? And guess what, sir? There are 125 young Lindoners just like her. And by the end of this year, there'll be 250. And in the near term, there will be 500 young Lindoners. Sir, Mr. Speaker, our friends on that side of the house will come and beat their chests, thump their chests. They will thump their chests in feigned triumphalism and profess their love for the people of this region and that region, except, sir, that they wrought havoc on the people of all 10 regions of Guyana for all of the 5 years that they spent in office during 2015 to 2020. Wrought trauma and havoc, sir. Sir, I will repeat those famous words. The truth hurts.
That's right.
I will repeat the famous words, the truth hurts. And you may ask, sir, why I choose to highlight the fundamental problem that the APNU AFC has with credibility. I will ask why they have this fundamental problem with credibility. Because the APNU AFC has a long history of selling pipe dreams.
Ice cream promises.
Pipe dreams. Nothing that they intend to deliver. Sir, you know what? They are jumping up and saying that from 2015 to 2020 they didn't have oil money. Mr. Speaker, in the same manifesto, they had a section that explained how they are going to finance their czars. Their economic czars wrote a section of this manifesto that explained how they were going to finance these lofty plans, cutting the VAT, taking off the VAT off of food, doubling old age pension. They meticulously documented how they were going to finance all of these promises. Sir, the section was called Reaping the Democratic Dividend.
Ooh. Democratic dividend? Democratic.
The section, sir, was called Reaping the Democratic Dividend.
That's like the Grim Reaper.
Sir, one, we will reduce capital flight. This is currently estimated at $200 million annually. We expect savings to be between 10 and 20%. Two, augmenting capital inflows, augmenting capital inflows. This is currently estimated at about 450 million US dollars annually as a result of our improved political environment. This augmentation is projected to be 15%. 3, reducing incentives for the underground economy, currently estimated at 20 to 60%. That's a pretty big range, mind you, right? Might as well that it says 0 to 100. Might as well that it says 0 to 100. Currently estimated at between 20 and 60% of official GDP. Projected savings from this underground formal economy conversion benefits are 10% of this amount, or 2 to 6% of GDP. Reducing procurement fraud, estimated at 28 to 35% of total procurement, amounting to 140 billion Gaya dollars. Tax reforms are expected to yield 12% of total revenues of $168 billion. Growth of GDP to reach its potential, thereby yielding a further 3% on annual growth of GDP. I'm going to return to that matter shortly, sir. Etc. Petro-Caribe, projected savings from eliminating siphoning off practices, which will be about 6 billion. Improved labor productivity due to an improved industrial relations climate. Sir, they had 23 years in opposition. They took 23 years. They sit down for 23 years and study and analyze and cogitate, and they come up with this white paper, green paper, position paper, whatever paper you want to call it. I'm not going to speak about the kind of paper that Mr. Nandalal apparently applied those mysterious lecture notes that he was so slanderously accused of having borrowed. Sir, they took 23 years and came up with this masterpiece, selling pipe dreams to the people of Guyana, and then they came into office. Where was this democratic dividend? Where is this democratic dividend? The abolition of this procurement. Where is this 30%? You were going to save 28 to 35% of total procurement fraud. Where is this 28 to 35%? Wait, gone. With this conversion of the underground economy? Sir, I'm making this point to say that the APNU AFC's track record when it comes to selling pipe dreams is a long and well-established track record. So when Mr. Roysdale Ford comes here and he says we will abolish income taxes, sir, when Mr. Roysdale Ford comes here and says we will abolish income taxes, sir, just like how you're to deliver all of these things in this paper here, all them things we're promising and calling for, sir, the people of Guyana know better. They are wiser. They are wiser now. They are wiser. They promised all of those things in here. They promised all, and they explained how they were going to finance it. But sir, there is a fundamental problem in the APNU AFC with credibility. And reality, but in all honesty, sir, it isn't only a credibility problem. The truth is that there is also a problem either with competence or with honesty, or perhaps both, a lethal cocktail of the two. or perhaps a lethal cocktail of the two. And this problem with competence and honesty is as rife today, if not more, than it has always been. Sir, just like how they looked at the nation and the world and said 33 is not bigger than 32, and this story about divide and half a man, just like how they said they win the elections, but they ain't showing you their SOPs, and they're watching you with a straight face. They're watching you with a straight face. Many of them put on a suit and a tie and speaking with very sophisticated accents.
Anglo-Saxon.
Sir, in exactly the same manner. Sir, you know all this mumbo jumbo that you hear today? Not today. All this mumbo jumbo that you heard some of it today from our colleagues on the other side of the house. But all this mumbo jumbo that you heard over the last week from them is just that. They take their eyes past the Guyanese people. Just like how they take their eyes past you when they tell you 33 is bigger than 32. Just like how they take their eyes past you when they say we win, but we ain't gonna show you your SOPs. They take their eyes past the Guyanese people. I don't want to use unparliamentary language, sir. Sir, you must want to go sleep. Sir, as the Honorable Minister just said, thou shalt not sleep in the summer. You spent 5 years sleeping, you didn't sleep enough. You were sleeping at the wheel. You were sleeping in Brickdam. Understandably, because Mr. Felix had some of your work. Who else had the rest? Sir, Mr. Speaker, this problem with competence, credibility, competence, and honesty is as rife today, if not worse. And I wish, sir, just to give maybe 2 or 3 simple examples drawn from the last week. 2 or 3 simple examples. And before I do so, sir, permit me to congratulate all of the newly appointed shadow ministers on their appointments. Some are new, some retained their portfolios, some were moved. Perhaps the Chief Whip was being freed up to do his important parliamentary work. The Chief Whip is a very active Chief Whip. Perhaps he was being freed up to do the Chief Whip's work. Some were removed. Mr. Ramjatan, I know it was not given the Home Affairs portfolio because perhaps he never had it, but we'll put that aside for the moment. We will set that aside for the moment. I would like to congratulate all of the newly appointed or reassigned shadow ministers. And I would like, and I know that I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues on this side of the House, to say that we are available to engage with our counterparts on that side of the House on any issue of national interest and national importance. I know that I speak. And I wish, sir, to address on the subject of credibility, competence, and integrity. I wish to cite 2 or 3 simple examples. My distinguished counterpart and newly appointed Shadow Finance Minister, the Honorable Member, Ms. Jurita Finance.
Oh man, don't do that. Don't do it.
No, she's a new MP, relatively young MP. I won't. I have always considered it my duty to encourage young members of parliament, as I was once encouraged as a young MP myself. I wish, sir, to say to the honorable member, Ms. Jurita Fadans, that we do serious business in this house. This is not a skit that is being performed at school. This is not a school skit for Christmas, where you go up at the podium, you repeat your lines, and then you pause and you wait for people to clap, and you feel nice when you get applause, and you go back to sit down. This is serious. This is the people's work that we're doing. This is serious work. And as a young member of parliament who probably has a long career in politics, I would say to her that nothing is more important than your credibility. Nothing is more important than your credibility. Sir, in a manner somewhat akin to a high school skit, with a chorus line that said, F, 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 what a joke, what a joke, what a joke. She came and she struck a pose at the podium. She delivered 2 lines and then F, F, F grade. She delivered another line, then F for F grade. She delivered another line, and what a joke. Sir, I want to share with the honorable member a couple of examples drawn from her own presentation. She made much ado about what she described as the anemic growth. I think she read that in some book somewhere or some publication somewhere. She made much ado about the anemic growth under the People's Progressive Party. Now, here, what is this anemic growth that she's speaking about? She said, in 2020, the People's Progressive Party returned economic growth of negative 7.3. Apparently under an illusion that they had respected the electoral result in March and allowed us to be in government for 9 months of the year so that we could be held accountable for 2020. She apparently didn't remember that she participated in a protracted effort to deny the will of the people of Guyana, as a result of which the APNU AFC was illegally in office until August 2020. So you can't come and speak about the PPP being responsible for 2020, but put that fact aside for the moment. Put that fact aside for the moment. She says growth was negative 7.3 in 2020. Growth was 4.6 in 2021. And if the PPP achieves growth of 7.7 in 2022, they will, let me see, I want to read it. She said, let us say, I want to quote, I have it here. I asked for the verbatim transcript. I believe it's at 10 minutes and 30 seconds or thereabouts into her speech. She said, let us say that the economy actually grew by 7.7% in 2022. Non-oil economy. That's a little bit difficult to decipher, but let us say that the economy, I will try to translate it into smooth English language. Let us say that the economy actually grew by 7.7% non-oil. Unlikely as it is, sir, that would amount to an average GDP growth of 1.47. Sir, in this business, you can't play fast and loose with numbers. You can't play fast and loose with numbers. Not if you want to be taken seriously. Negative 7.3. Positive 4.6 and positive 7.7. Every little child with a pocket calculator can calculate the average of those 3 numbers. She says that would amount, the honorable member says that would amount to an average GDP growth of 1.47%. Sir, I invite the people of Guyana to take out their pocket calculator. Calculate the average. Everybody got a phone. They got a calculator. Listen to the video. Negative 7.3, positive 4.6, and positive 7.7. And tell me how she arrived at 1.47. The honorable member. Sir, I don't know if it's the same numerical challenge that they have. You have to wonder, or whether it is a deliberate intent to deceive and mislead. But it didn't.
But Honorable Minister, you can't imply deliberate attempt to mislead and deceive.
I would happily withdraw if, sir. But in addition to that, like I said earlier, if you are to do an objective analysis of the People's Progressive Party's performance in government, you have to look. You cannot take into account 2020, during which for almost 8 months they were squatting in office. But over and above that, to have achieved maybe this word anemic is new to her, she hears something but anemic growth. But sir, in a world where there is COVID-19, to describe 4.6% as anemic is to be doing a little bit of gymnastics. Is to be playing fast and loose with your interpretation. Countries all over the world, sir, I can show you the charts that have Guyana as one of the strongest performing economies in the world. But she does this amateur analysis to say we budgeted this number and we reported less than that number. Mr. Speaker, you know what is the F grade about? That because of COVID-19 and the flood, our actual growth came in lower than what we had projected. Let me share with the honorable member, sir, what they projected in 2015 and in 16 and in 17 and what their actual growth it was. So in 2015, they projected, and they were in office from May 2015, they projected growth of 3.4%. You know what was the actual? 3.1. And they were harvesting the democratic dividend, sir. They were harvesting the democratic dividend. They projected 3.4. They came in with 3.1. Had she reported that, she might have said F there too. In 2016, a full year of the democratic dividend, they projected 4.4%. They reported an actual of 3.3. And sorry, it got even better as more and more of the democratic dividend started to be harvesting. In 2017, they projected 3.8%. And they reported an actual of 2.1%. Sorry, it sounds to me like this was not the democratic dividend. It sounds like the dictatorial dividend. The negative dictatorial dividend was already starting to take root.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, the honourable member, with similar theatrics, spoke about gold, about how they were managing the economy well. You remember, cited some numbers about gold. Similar aplomb. Similar aplomb. Thank you very much, sir. So with similar aplomb, she took on a look of gravitas. She assumed, sir, she assumed the countenance of gravitas. She assumed the countenance of gravitas, and she said, gold. She said, sir, gold declaration. Sir, the last year of the PPP being in office, 2014. And I'm quoting here, sir, the gold declaration was 387,000 ounces. And then she paused for dramatic effect like they do in school skits. She paused for dramatic effects like they teach you to do in primary school drama class when you're doing a Christmas skit. She said, mark this number. She must, with all of her feigned gravitas, she said, mark this number, listen carefully. She said the coalition came into office in 2015. The first year of APNU-AFC gold declaration was 451,000 ounces. 16.51% increase, that's our first year in office. And then she went on, sir. She said, let's move to our second year in office. Don't steal my punchline, sir. I'm getting to it. She said, let's move to our second year in office, sir, 2016. Let me recap it, sir, for added emphasis. My distinguished counterpart on that side of the house paused, as she would in a school skit, and said, let me recap it for persons that missed that. PPP left office in 2014.
2014?
That's what it, I'm hoping I don't have a typo here, but let's say their last, well, she corrected it. She said their last year in office in 2014, repetition for emphasis, good training at the schools for the school Christmas play. Their last year in office in 2014, we had the declaration of gold being 387,000 ounces. The drama teacher said repetition for purposes of emphasis. The coalition came into office in 2015. We had a declaration of gold, 451,000 ounces, a 16.5% increase. Sir, in 2016, the second year of the APNU-AFC being in office, 713,000 ounces, 58% increase. And then, sir, I will not say the pièce de résistance. It's been said already. We don't want to abuse and overuse that phrase. And then she said, with an air of great authority, she said, and they tried to school us on the extractive industry. And then with a similarly a lofty air of condescension, she said, what a joke. Our young colleague on that side of the house said, what a joke. Sir, sir, what a joke. Sir, I am sure that the people of Guyana are thinking, why she stopped this story in 2016? She had another 3 years she could tell me about. She could tell me about 2017 and 18 and 19 and maybe even 20. I am sure the people of Guyana, she left them hanging. Why she stopped the story there? But sir, if the truth is to be told, the reason why gold production increased in 2016, and the Honorable Member Minister Ben, who knows this sector more than anybody else in this country, said it just now. The reason why gold production increased in 2015 was because 2 large-scale gold mining companies started producing. Aurora Gold Mine and Troy Resources. And you know, under whose stewardship those large-scale gold mines were developed? No prizes for guessing, sir. Those 2 large-scale gold mines were developed under the stewardship of the People's Progressive Party.
Tell us about the remaining.
Sir, but guess what? So they started to produce because we had laid the foundation, we had supported them, we had facilitated their entry and their mine construction. They started to produce in 2015. They continued producing in 2016. And sir, Apparently, around 2017, she didn't give us the 2017, 2018, and 2019 numbers. I'm inviting her to share with the people at large, the citizens at large, why she didn't share those numbers. Because, sir, by the time the dictatorial dividend, the negative democratic dividend, by the time the negative democratic dividend started to set in, gold production took a nosedive. From the same 712,000 ounces that she was boasting about in 2016, by 2017, that 712,000 ounces had become 653,000 ounces. So by 2020, it had become 585,000 ounces. I don't want to say what a joke, sir, because I feel that it is my duty to encourage young members of parliament in the discharge of their responsibilities. And in doing so, I say to the honorable member that gone are the days when you can hoodwink the people of Guyana in this barefaced manner. Can't hoodwink the people of Guyana in this barefaced manner, sir. And sir, I could go on. I could go on, sir, because the entire presentation is replete. Sir, she spoke of sugar. Sir, she spoke of sugar. She spoke of sugar. And she said, again, with similar aplomb, I'm not going to go through all of that again. Sir, she spoke of sugar. Mr. Speaker, in 2014, which was the last full year that we were in office, in 2014, sugar production was 216,000 tons, 216,186 tons. In 2015, when we were in office for 5 months of the year, sugar production was 229,000 tons. So by 2020, when they demitted office, sugar production was 88,000 tons. 88,000 from 229,000.
Incredible. If you close down the sugar.
But she didn't tell that story. She didn't tell that story. And, sir, if you take an old motorcycle and you park it, you padlock it, and you park it and you don't use it for 3 years, what do you think will happen? If you take 3 sugar factory and you padlock the gate, you're going to think you're going to say, open the sesame? That's the correct phrase? You think you're going to turn up? Sir, you're going to padlock the 3 sugar factory, park the equipment and throw away the key, and come back. You think you're going to come back 3 years later and say, open sesame? Sir, and you know, presentation after presentation, and I don't want to go through. I took copious notes, sir, and I paid keen attention. I pay keen attention to everybody. Sir, look, I'm only going to give one more example. I'm only going to give one more example, and I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it in relation to another young member of parliament, and clearly a rising star in the People's National Congress. And so this is why I'm devoting the time that I am to his presentation. He's obviously a rising star in the party, for which he deserves our respect. And I'm speaking here of the Honourable Member, Mr. Holder, and I want, sir, to congratulate Mr. Holder on his election to the chairmanship of the party. He was elected chairman, right? Yes. Mr. Holder, that's his name? Sherwin Holder? Oh, yes. He got, Mr. Holder, he sits somewhere over there, right? He sits behind Annette, I think. I believe, sir, that the Honourable Member, Mr. Sherwin Holder, got more than 400 votes for the chairmanship. Mr. Ford got how many? He scraped 200? Oh, he didn't make double figures? Anyway. Mr. Sherwin Holder, who swept this slate. Annette, were you a contender for the chairmanship too? You weren't. So he didn't so I can tell you why. you're gonna see why in a minute. You're gonna see why in a minute. You will love this one. I promise you, you're gonna like this one. Honorable member, Mr. Ramjatan, I promise you, you're gonna love this one. Promise you. Mr. Holder, newly minted, newly elected, and freshly minted chairman of the People's National Congress, went to the podium and put on his chairman's voice. He put on his chairman's voice. Sir, I'm not going to read his whole speech. I only selected one paragraph. And sir, I had to listen to this video myself about 4 times because I started to doubt myself. You're laughing. Honorable Minister Waldron, you know what I'm going to say. Sir, I started to doubt myself. I said, man, something will be wrong with your hearing. Sir, I listened to this thing about 5 times. I call other people.
Just to make sure.
I said, listen to this thing for me, man. I'm sure if I'm hearing right.
Second opinion.
The chairman, the newly elected and freshly minted chairman of the People's National Congress, stood at that podium with his written speech. And this is where Minister Manikchand's comment is important. So he knows he's on show. He has to demonstrate that he's worthy of his election as chairman. He's on show for the nation. He spent from the 26th of January to yesterday writing the speech. He spent from the 26th of January to yesterday writing this. Oh yeah, whenever he spoke, I can't remember. Yesterday, day before. Writing the speech. He probably is. I don't want to get in this business about which school. This thing caused enough problems for the day already. The Honorable Member Attorney General wants to get me in trouble with past students of President's College. I'm not going to fall into that trap.
Because then we might get to talk about how Christopher Jones went to Dallas.
Sir, the freshly minted chairman of the People's National Congress took from the 26th to the day before yesterday to write this speech. Knowing that he's going to be on show, he studied, he read back the speech, he probably practiced it. I understand there was practice in the room over there. There was a time when I see through the window a man stand up in his speech reading the speech. Apparently there was practice the speech over there. Right? Apparently there was practice in the room where they got over there. Apparently they just put them for practice the speech over there. A day I see the window open and I see one of them stand up with the paper in front of the hand.
It's true.
Sir, is that true? Tell me, did I see correctly? Sir, there are stand up over there. Apparently the panel of elders, just put them youngsters and say, read your speech for me. Practice. They're reading. So poor brother Sherwin, the honorable member, the chairman, write his speech and stand up over there. He had him reading it about 10 times. Vetted by a panel of elders. Vetted by a panel of elders. Sir, vetted by a panel of elders. And then he came downstairs, sir. He come downstairs to put on this masterpiece performance, his first performance as chairman of the People's National Congress. I'm going to only read one paragraph for you. And I quote, I think it occurs around 3 minutes and 15 seconds into his speech. I quote, Guyana is dubbed among the fastest growing economies in the world, with over $600 million already in the bank. Mr. Speaker, no, there was no doubt about the currency on this occasion. Let me say that again. He's chairman. He was clear about the currency. Guyana is dubbed amongst the fastest growing economies in the world, with over $600 million already in the bank. Mr. Speaker, Guyana has about 750,000 people. And then he paused. The Christmas skit again. They just teach them apparently to do that over there. You got pause. Right? Then he paused.
The elders.
Sorry, pause. He paused. And then he came back and he said, not 75 million. He put on his chairman's voice. He said, not 75 million, not 7 million, 750,000 people.
1 million per person.
And then he continued, sir. He said, that means we already have in the NRF close to $1 million for every man, woman, and child that lives in the country. Sir, he's a youngster. He's a youngster. And clearly has a bright political future, having been elected as chairman of his party, for which I congratulate him. And I would encourage him to devote himself to ensuring a long and successful political career. In the opposition, of course. But I want to say this, sir. If that is the best that y'all, and I don't hold young holder responsible for this. All of y'all was sitting there when y'all were vetting the man's speech. And when he did rehearsing, none of y'all is pat there and tell the man, I got a feeling somebody sabotaged the man. I got a feeling somebody sabotaged the man. Is it you, Mr. Ramjatan, who sabotaged the man, set up the man? How could you do this to your young member of parliament? Listen to him rehearse this speech over there. Allow him to come here and play. So let me ask you a question. Mr. Holder is clearly a smart young man. You honestly believe that he believes that 600 million divided by 700,000 is a million each? You honestly believe that he believes that?
Man, woman, and child.
And he didn't leave any doubt. He didn't say the population. So we could speculate that the man mean the adult population. He left no room for doubt, sir. He didn't say household. He didn't say the whole population. So then he could have come back and say, I meant the adult population. The man removed all doubt. The man said every man, woman, and child. $1 million each. I got not only the vice president's hour, but the half hour that the PM left back for me. Mr. Speaker, I give these examples, sir. Or was it 45 minutes that he left back for me? He was a little bit brief. So, Mr. Speaker, I make this point, sir, and I could give, sir, throughout their presentations, all of them without exception. I only selected 2 or 3 examples. I only selected about 2 or 3 examples. I could literally give you dozens of examples and several examples from every speech given where there was a lot of fast and loose with numbers, all sorts of random, miscellaneous, nonsensical things being thrown at the people of Guyana. Sir, these are only some illustrative examples, and I offer these examples, sir, with the best of intentions. And I want to say to those 2 young members of parliament, I want to say to those 2 young members of parliament, you are young people. You are young people as I once was in this house. You are young people. Don't play fast and loose with numbers. You cannot deceive the people of Guyana by just plucking random things like that. Sir, don't play fast and loose with numbers. And you ain't got to be a magician with numbers. Sir, you ain't got to be a magician with numbers to figure out that 600 million divided by 700,000 can't be a million each. Sir, the issue really is, you see this 33 versus 32 thing? You see this 33 versus 32 thing? This is ingrained behavior. This is ingrained behavior. They actually, and sir, the senior, my concern, sir, is the senior members of parliament of the AP and UFC have convinced their junior counterparts that it is acceptable and appropriate to come to this house and mislead the people of Guyana. And they are actively encouraging it. Yes. And I am saying to these young members of parliament, you have a long future in politics. Don't fall into the trap and be misled by these fossils. Don't fall into the same trap and be misled by these fossils. Sir, and so my point is that throughout the week we were regaled by nothing but empty and vacuous theatrics that were replete with ample and abundant demonstration of the fact that the APNU AFC is up to today a party that is devoid of any credibility. Up to today, they haven't changed. They haven't changed, they haven't learned. It's going to get worse. They haven't learned that you can't tell the people 33 and bigger than 32 and think that the people are stupid. Up to today, they believe that you can get away with this foolishness. And their presentations were filled with misrepresentations, pipe dreams, false promises, distortions, and all manner of statements that have no place in a debate on the serious business of the people. No place in this house. Sir, regrettably, sir, they missed the opportunity to actually contribute to a serious debate about Budget 2020. And if they had any semblance of credibility, competence, and integrity in them, if they had the least scintilla of any of those characteristics, much less all three of them, they would have arrived at the unavoidable conclusion that Budget 2022 includes a number of initiatives that are worthy of unanimous support in this National Assembly. So how can you come? How can anybody with a straight face come to this house and say that a budget that will be giving every single family that has a child at school a grant of $30,000 per child? Sir, that's 200,000 children. All of their families are watching. And all of their families are saying, you know, some are probably saying, you know, instead of 30, I want to prefer 35. Right? Admittedly, who wouldn't prefer 35 rather than 30? But sir, all of them are watching and saying, you know what? I'm satisfied or I'm happy that the government gave me 30. Maybe next year I'll get 35.
Because for the 2 years ago,
sir, realistic, who wouldn't want 35 instead of 30? But you can be sure that the parents of those 200,000 Guyanese children are at home and they're saying, you know what, I'm going to take me $30,000. Bearing in mind that the APNU AFC had taken it away. Had taken it away. And you're watching these people straight in the face and say the budgeting got nothing for you. You have 300 persons suffering from dialysis, sir. And we have said to them, we will pay $600,000 a year. And you're watching those people and saying to them, the budgeting got nothing for you. Everybody who pays income tax will benefit from the increase in income tax threshold from $65,000 to $75,000 a month. Now, you ask, don't you think, of course, people would have preferred it to be 85? if you ask them, or 95. But you don't think they're at home saying, you know what? At least I know that they move from 65 to 75. We'll put some more disposable income in my pocket. I will take it. And next year, I will probably get another increase because this is the People's Progressive Party in government, not the APNUFC. And you're watching these people in their faces and you're saying, the budgeting are nothing for them. Sir, the 1,000 persons who will be trained to work in the oil and gas sector, they are 1,000 young Guyanese persons looking and hoping for a job for 5 years. Apparently, sir, the drama school that they got over there had also told them that they must come up with real-life examples. So every one of them came, some come with Shaliza, some come with Shaniza, some come with Michael, some come with some security guard that he meets somewhere. Apparently the drama school that they got over there told them you have to have real-life examples. You notice how many of them came with so-called real-life examples? Sunita or Sunita? Right? Sir, all of those persons, whether real or imagined, all of those real life, so-called real life examples that the drama, the Christmas, the training program for the Christmas skit. The training program for this Christmas skit said you must come with real life examples. That will have appeal to people. Sir, they came here, sir, and they gave a whole set of real life examples. So you know why, whether it is Sunita or Shaliza or Shaniza or Michael, you know why they are in the situation they are in?
Brother James.
Because for 5 years, they were suffering the consequences of a dictatorship in this country, of an unconscionable government that did not care about people, whether imagined or real. So 1,000 persons out there will be benefiting from training as a result of this budget. They will be able to get a job in the oil and gas industry. They'll be able to earn an income. And you're watching them in their face and you tell them this budgeting are nothing for them. The fisher folk, a sector that Minister Mustafa has devoted tremendous effort. We recognize that the sector has challenges. Minister Mustafa has put together a special task force to identify options for intervention in the aquaculture sector. He has already implemented measures to develop the brackish water shrimp program in Barbies. Already, how many ponds are already in operation? 63 ponds are already in operation. He has identified the marine cage program that fisher folk will be able to benefit from. Only today, Minister Mustafa and His Excellency participated in a special meeting of CARICOM devoted to the agriculture sector and to achieving food security in Guyana, a sector that was abandoned by the APNUAFC callously because they feel that people in agriculture are PPP supporters. Sir, you don't think those people are watching? They know that maybe this is not a magical solution. They know that all the problems ain't going to disappear. But you know what? They're watching and saying, you know what? At least the People's Progressive Party is trying to assist me. For 5 years, I never hear from APNU or AFC. They're going to try the marine cage. They're going to try the brackish water shrimp. They'll try the onshore farming of the fish. And then making things happen. Not a white paper or a green paper or a position paper or a strategy. While we are sharing out house lots, they were doing I can't possibly, given that the Honourable Member Ferguson, Honourable Member Miss Annette Ferguson, has been so gracious to stay in the House until now, I can't possibly end without making reference to her. Sir, she announced with great pride, Honourable Member and former Minister, the Honourable Member Miss Annette Ferguson and former Minister. Sir, in speaking about their housing program, she announced with customary APNU AFC aplomb. She said, we prepared and you know she's a very forceful and emotional speaker. She put on her brother James' voice, right? Full of emotion. Sir, and the honorable member said, she delivered the punchline, hear the punchline, and we prepared a position paper. Sir, they prepared position paper and we giving people house lot. And sir, that right there summarizes the difference between the APNU and the People's Progressive Party. That right there. Because while they sell pipe dreams, while they seek to mislead the people of Guyana, we are hard at work. Our president is hard at work. Our vice president is hard at work. Our prime minister is hard at work. Our ministers are hard at work. While they are busy selling pipe dreams. Sir,
white people, blue people, green people.
Sir, there can be no doubt. Any objective-minded person, any objective-minded person would arrive at the unavoidable conclusion that this budget outlines a plan to deliver a historic or unhistoric, depending on what the grammarians would say. Would this budget 2022 outlines an historic plan for the transformation, a historic and unprecedented transformation of Ghana. Whether it be sir, we are always, this government, and the honourable member Annette Ferguson asks, what about their recommendations? Well, let me say definitively that this government is a listening government. We are a listening government. We are not a cardboard government. We are a listening government. We are a listening government. And we listen to all of the people of Guyana, whether in Region 1, Region 5, Region 6, Region 4, Region 7, Region 9, Region 10. Oh, I left out a few, but 2, 3, and 4, 8. And we, sir, and I'm glad because you've given me a nice entry point to my conclusion. You have given me a nice entry point to my conclusion. Not only are we a listening government, but we listen to all of the people of Guyana. Not like the APNU AFC, who only used to listen to themselves. You all used to be, the APNU AFC, sir, used to operate in an echo chamber. All they used to be hearing is their own voices. They don't even have a clue what's going on. Sir, this government, this budget, outlines an agenda for transforming Guyana in a way that generations of Guyanese have been waiting for. The energy, the gas to shore project, and the Amila Falls to deliver energy at scale using clean and renewable sources, including, of course, gas as a transition fuel. At scale, delivering electricity at the level that is required to facilitate an industrial revolution in Guyana. Finally, the industrial revolution that our foreparents have dreamt of, but were unable to realize because of inadequacy and cost of power. Finally, this People's Progressive Party government will deliver it. And budget 2022 initiates that delivery. The transport infrastructure, the new roads and the bridges, the commuters from West Demerara and the commuters from East Bank know what they have endured. They know what they have endured. Today, sir, we are delivering new roads. We have already delivered new roads along the East Bank. And we have new highway, additional, I think, another 8 lanes planned along the East Bank. And ultimately, a brand new highway all the way to Timeri. A new bridge across the Demerara River. A new and expanded highway on the Quarantine. The bridge across the Quarantine River, linking us with our neighbors in Suriname, expanding the market in which we're operating, creating a market. Imagine a Guyanese farmer from Blackbush Polder being able to load up his lorry, and just as he drives to Port Morant Market and he delivers some produce, and he drives to Skeldon Market and he delivers some produce, he crosses over the river with his truck and he delivers his produce in Nikeri too. That is correct. That is correct. That is vision, sir. That is vision. That is development. And that is being delivered by this People's Progressive Party government. That is being delivered by Budget 2022. It is being delivered by this People's Progressive Party government. Sir, there are many other points that I could deal with. The hospitals. Minister Frank Anthony doesn't want me to leave out his sector. Thank you for the reminder. Brand new hospitals. Brand new hospitals being constructed. 6 brand new regional hospitals and a brand new maternal and child health hospital being built starting 2022. Not a green paper or a white paper. A hospital being built, as a matter of fact, not one, 6 of them.
Not a policy paper.
Sir, we are a working government. We may not have solved all of the problems immediately, because there are a lot of inherited problems. But I don't believe that anybody with a straight face can question that Budget 2022 makes a significant contribution to transforming Guyana and to improving the lives of the Guyanese people. And I want to make this point. You see this hullabaloo, I used this word previously. You see all of this noise that was made about the Natural Resource Fund. You know what the real crux of the matter is? The real crux of the matter is the APNU AFC wants, the APNU AFC and their surrogates want to frustrate development in this country. As they have always done. As they have always done.
They will not be allowed to.
Every dollar to be withdrawn from the fund is subject to parliamentary scrutiny and appropriation. Every dollar is subject to ex post audit and scrutiny by the Public Accounts Committee. Everything, unlike the arrangement that they had in place when expenses could have been met from the fund without appropriation. Every dollar is subject to scrutiny in this House. Sir, if an objective analysis is to be done, the Natural Resource Fund Act of 29 was one of the greatest legislative perversities ever perpetrated on this country. 2019, January 2019. Sir, they see, to begin with, they see nothing wrong with forcing through this parliament after they lost a mandate from the elected, from their own members of parliament. Forcing through this house. And they come with a straight face. Forcing through this house a natural resource bill. Put aside the flaws in the bill. To begin with, it suffered the fatally irreparable defect of constitutional illegitimacy.
No, Chanda, no.
Correct
But
yourself.
in addition to that, if one were to examine the bill is a grave and vulgar perversity, replete with ministerial autocracy. They come now and they make a lot of noise about the board being appointed by the president. Sir, the 2019, sir, let's, sir, I will repeat what I said. The APNU and their surrogates. I will repeat what I said. The APNU and their surrogates.
Take her down. Take her down.
Sir, I want to repeat. Sir, I want to repeat. Sir, I think the Honorable Attorney General quoted from one source, Andrew Boyer, and what he had to say about the APNU AFC Natural Resource Fund. Sir, I will quote from another source. I will quote from a book published by the Inter-American Development Bank called Economic Institutions for a Resilient Caribbean. Sir, at page 270 of this book, at page 270 of this book, in a section called Assessment and Options for Reform, here is what the authors of this chapter of this book, who incidentally are renowned, the author of this chapter is a preeminent global authority on sovereign wealth funds. A preeminent global authority. Sir, here is what the author had to say. The objectives and design of the NRF raise several issues. The fund on its own cannot achieve the objectives that have been set for it. The rigid withdrawal rules may do little to foster stabilization or saving, but may entail fiscal costs. And he goes on. Sir, I will quote particularly pertinent sentences. He goes on. He says the formula for the maximum permissible withdrawal in the initial period is among the most complex operational rules for a resource fund in the world. So this is a person who is a global expert on sovereign wealth funds, has designed many sovereign wealth funds around the world. He says it is amongst the most complex operational rules for a resource fund in the world. And he goes on to say, its design departs from good practices. As discussed above, state-of-the-art advice based on international experience and good fiscal management principles emphasizes simplicity, flexibility, transparency, and close integration with the budget and public asset liability management. And the final sentence in that paragraph says, the rule's complexity may also conspire against fiscal transparency and against public understanding. He goes further. He says in a subsequent paragraph, the rules could hamper sound asset liability management, etc., etc. So there's a whole section in this book that demolishes. There's a whole section of this book that demolishes that perversity that was inflicted on the people of Guyana. But sir, you know what the plan was? I hear reference to the plan. Somebody said today that the APNU AFC is forward thinking. I think it was Mr. Ford who spoke about forward thinking. I could come back to forward thinking. They were forward thinking when they appointed Mr. Patterson as chairman, when they rejected 18 people and appointed Mr. Patterson as chairman of GCOM.
Forward thinking for a purpose.
They were forward thinking for a purpose. They were ahead of the curve there. Sir, the intention behind the 2019 Act, sir, the 2019 NRF Act was designed for ministerial autocracy. Ministerial determination of the economically feasible amount. Don't worry with the smoke screen about macroeconomic committee. Sir, the macroeconomic committee was not deciding anything. They were only making a recommendation. The minister was determining. I don't want to use the word pillaging. The determination of the fiscally sustainable amount was being determined by the minister as well. And incidentally, the macroeconomic committee that was recommending to the minister was appointed by the minister. And they're recommending to him, he can discard their recommendation and form a view of his own. But sir, there was intent here. There was intent here. The fact that there was no governing body, no governing board. Make no mistake of it, the Public Accountability and Oversight Committee is not a substitute for a board. Whatever you call the board, whether you call it a board of directors, board of governors, governing council, governing committee, whatever we could have called it anything. The Santiago Principles require a governing body. The APNU AFC discarded the need for discarded that particular principle and installed, they like to use the word installed, they installed and anointed the maximum authority, the sole authority, the Minister of Finance, whomever that person would have been. With intent, sir. With intent, sir. I am not like the APNU AFC. You want me to start about the personalization, the personal jibes and the personal attacks that were launched? Don't start me up. You complain already that it's late. You want me to deal with the personal insults. You want me to deal with the personal insults that were being bandied every day by opposition speakers. If I start on that, we ain't left in here till tomorrow morning. Don't let me start on that. And you know I could do a 6-hour here easy. Don't start me up on that. It was the honorable member, Mr. Ramsden, who said it. He wagged his finger.
Warn them.
And he said, don't get personal with me.
I warned them.
He said, don't get personal with me. Sir, I didn't do that. I sat here in silence. And I endured all manner of personal insults. I sat here and tried to muster whatever dignity I could muster and endured all manner of personal insults. All of us on this side of the house. All manner. So don't get me started on personalizing. I could personalize too. Right? I could personalize too, but that is not my style. That's not my style. I won't do that because I don't stoop to the level of the APNU AFC. I won't stoop to the level of the APNU AFC. I might deploy the honorable member, Mr. Ramsden. I might deploy the honorable member, Mr. Ramsden, who's volunteering to stoop. But so, I hear there's a second volunteer. The gentleman who wore a particularly flamboyant jacket today.
It is resemblance of a...
Sir, I want to say this. I'm not going to start on that personal thing because we would be here all night. But I'm glad you mentioned it, Honorable Member Annette, because I will refer to it as I conclude. This moment in Guyana's history is a critical turning point. It's a critical turning point. We are dealing with serious business of building our country and transforming our country. This is not a moment for personal insults. It's not a moment for snide remarks. It's not a moment for amateur theatrics. It's not a moment for high school skits and drama. This is serious business. It's serious business. And when you come to this house to debate the national budget, especially a budget as important as this, you have an obligation and a responsibility to the people who put you here to take the task seriously. And tragically, the 31, I'm recognizing the Honorable Deputy Speaker and accepting him here. The 31, is it 31 members that they have? Well, we're not sure what the status is of the Honorable Member, but... Oh, this is half man thing? The 30 or 31, whatever they have right now. The 30 or 31, well, the 31, because the Honorable Member, what's her name again? I know her by the more popular name. What's her name again? The former Minister of Education. The Honorable Member Nicolette Henry. The Honorable Member and former Minister of Education Nicolette Henry. She spoke. So the 31 members on that side of the House who spoke, regrettably, oh sorry, the 30 members who spoke, sadly, sir, missed the opportunity to participate in a meaningful and sensible debate on Budget 2022. However, sir, this People's Progressive Party civic government will not let the people's business be frustrated. We will proceed. We will proceed with implementing this transformational budget, continuing to do as we always do, continuing to listen and engage closely, listen to and engage closely with the people of Guyana. Because we, sir, are here to serve. We, sir, are not cardboard overlords. And on that note, sir, let me say that I consider myself, and I know that my colleagues on this side of the House, we all consider ourselves deeply privileged. Even I might go so far as to speak on behalf of the hundreds of technical people who worked on this budget in my own ministry, many of whom are here, in other ministries, the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of persons, technical persons, not elected officials, technical people who contributed to the preparation of this budget and who will contribute to the implementation of this budget. If I might dare to speak on behalf of all of us, we consider ourselves greatly privileged to be a part of the preparation and implementation of Budget 2022. And sir, at the appropriate time, it will be my honor, at the appropriate time, it will be my honor to move the passage and approval of this historic budget, historic transformational Budget 2022. I thank you very much, sir.